Thanks for joining us. I'm here with Ian Osborne. He's a producer here in Nashville, Tennessee, coming from Dallas, Texas. And had spent some time in LA, worked with DJ Skee for a while out there. And I met him at home, this organization in Nashville, a nonprofit music production organization, and thought that he was like a great example of success in Nashville in the music industry. So wanted to talk to him. I mean, everybody defines their own idea of success, but sure. When I was talking, he was like, wow, this guy's like doing it. It's like really, really encouraging to see it for people.
Been blessed to find some cool people to work with in town. It's been really great. So
yeah, man. Yeah. Awesome. I feel like Nashville is so one of the most important things about Nashville is like learning how to network and connect with people. And I've seen all sides of it, the people who are like going to events and to network, like passing out business cards, and that just doesn't really fly in Nashville, does it? Like that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably similar to, other big cities and like LA and New York even and stuff, where there's a certain amount of transient nature where people are moving through, often. And so there's a lot of that new energy of, very like trying to establish themselves, make some inroads, meet a lot of people, hand out a lot of cards, and that, that can work, definitely not Nashville's style though. Their style is definitely, it's still very much a small town, but in a big city. Yep. And, it has that big city feel, even though it's very small town-ish. And so what I found is that making a friend at an event is a lot more beneficial, long run than like trying to juice somebody up with your, card or your big speech or your 20-second pitch or whatever.
Right.
Just because there's a lot of defenses, I think, in towns like this for people who are just like in it and quick, and they like a slow speed here. So I'd always take my time and try to find the people you really resonate with. People like to work long term and think long term too in Nashville, which I appreciate. But it means that some of that quick flashiness can kind of sometimes rub people the wrong way. So
yeah, it makes sense. It's almost about like finding like true connections and. I think one of the things about Nashville notices it feels like very transient in some ways. Like people are here and then they're gone, and it feels almost like this vortex or like weird just mix of energies. And you said that sort of the threshold here is about 3 years. And
someone told me that as soon as I moved to town, they were like, "Hey, don't leave for 3 years before you'll know whether you can find your place here. If you pull out before then, you won't." It won't have been long enough for people to know that you're here, and that you're not going anywhere. So I think that's something that I took to heart and did seem to be pretty true. I mean, the time frame for me when we moved up here, the 3 years would have been like right into COVID. So it was a little bit weird timing, but that was about when I felt like I could go to a lot of events and I always knew somebody in the room. I always knew someone, and that starts to be that threshold, I think.
It's almost like a resume piece too, or it's like a filter. If somebody hasn't been here for 3 years, you don't trust that they're going to be sticking around, and like you develop these long-term partnerships and collaborations. And maybe could you talk about some of the collaborations or partnerships that you've made here, you brought with you from LA?
Yeah, totally. I mean, everything. It's funny. I think one of the first things that we did when we got here, I say me and a business partner like moved here at the same time. Our families both, were in Dallas, and we decided, okay, we got to get, back out to one of these music cities. And a lot of the friends that we had in LA were actually moving, thinking about heading to Atlanta or heading to Nashville. And so we ended up working with an artist that was here on Curb Records, and that's kind of what like facilitated us being in Nashville over other places.
Oh, cool.
But at some point, we moved out here. So when I got here, it's so much about collaboration that we like put together like a almost like it was a presentation that we gave at an event called Immerse, and it was at Lipscomb University. And so I'm highly like I will talk your ear off about how it's all collaboration. A lot of the records that you love have long lists of who worked on it and how many hands touched it,
right,
and what it takes to move an artist's through the field and move the needle for an artist. It takes a lot of hands, and there's sort of in the internet culture that's been around for the last decade or so, there's more and more of that idea that's crept in of like, you got to do it all yourself, you know?
Oh, interesting.
And that's pretty, you know, it's prevalent, and it's cool because you can today, like you can learn how to do it all, and you can be a one-man band. And
do you think that slows people down here though, if you're trying to do everything, you know, not having those connections?
It definitely can. I think there's a certain amount of almost like time you have to do of that when you're getting going, where you need to learn a little bit of everything and try everything and build a certain amount of the work. But then there's at a point when you want to cross that sort of Rubicon of like, I'm making stuff that like sounds like cool or whatever to like industry level, you know, stuff that's going to get used in, you know, for artists and used by publishers or used on television or whatever it is. But to make that jump from sort of like here to there is sometimes, you know, it takes that collaboration piece. And so I've always had somebody in my life that was sort of like a mentor or someone that was ahead of the road, you know, and had more experience than me that I had access to, you know?
That's great. That's great.
And it sort of happened by accident, but that was always the case. And my business partner, Cash Calloway, who I moved here with, was that for me when I was an artist growing up. He met me when I was like 15 and an artist.
Oh, wow,
he was my
man.
producer,
Cool.
right? And so that, you know, relationship developed over years until we were, you know, a partnership. And we did all of the Power Ranger stuff together and all that. So, you know, it's all about kind of collaborating and finding your team and your tribe and all the words that we use for that, the people that you resonate the most with. And that's what Nashville people are sort of after. They want to find that, you know, and it's not cliquish where people are like, you know, this is only, of course there is some of that, but it's like, there is an openness to Nashville that I love too, where if you resonate right with somebody, you can get into that group, you know, and if it's the right fit. So, but I'm a big believer in just collaboration and all that. And some of the first things that I did, I mean, we got here and I think the first like place we essentially went was home, helping our music evolve. And you know, we went and met Logan there and saw the facility, and it was great, and we signed up on the spot, you know, as members.
Clicked. That's awesome.
And that's even a collaboration, you know. You can do what we do in a bedroom, you know. You don't need the studio space that's there. You don't need quote unquote all these things. But when you start to work up there and you start to rub elbows with people and meet other people, that was a big thing for me. And over the years, I built my whole, you know, sort of production business in Nashville out of that building. So you know, taking client meetings there, and you know, so home has been a big collaborator of mine. And over the time, you know, now I work with their A&R program, and so you know, it's become a deeper and deeper collaboration. But I always had, you know, long-term collaborators. I still have a number of people that now I collaborate with where they're not really on the creative side exactly. It's like a publisher, right? Or like my sync, you know, company and agency that I work with. Those people, I really value their collaboration too, because they're not necessarily on the ground doing the production stuff with me, but they can guide the process, and they know a lot of times what the clients are looking for.
It's like symbiosis, right?
So it's all of that coming together, and I love that stuff, and I think that's super important for people who want to make that move towards that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about Nashville being in person, talking about networking and collaborations and linking up with people, you know, one of the things that I noticed about you and your music online is compared to a lot of people who I'm seeing, you know, like really focus on Instagram and, you know, have their website set up and like this big social media presence. I feel like you, from what I saw online, you seem to be more of like an in-person kind of guy. Like you're meeting people and collaborating in person. How do you like know that you want to work with somebody? Like how do you get the information from them about like their background and their expertise and their music? Like what is the Nashville calling card nowadays?
So I'm like probably the worst person to ask that about. As you've noticed, what like you just said, I have over the last probably 2 to 3 years very much relinquished a lot of my online presence.
To me, that's like relieving. I'm like, that sounds great. Let's do stuff in person. Like, let's talk.
Well,
you know.
I mean, and for those who are built for social media, more power to you.
Sure.
It's not good for me. It doesn't do good for my mental health, just in general. So I really limit now how much I even interact with it, you know, totally. At all. But I definitely have found that as a producer, it seems to be not quite as important, obviously, as it would if I was like an artist out there. So you have to play that game, I think, as an artist to some degree still. And, you know, it's not like you shouldn't have your information up on, you know, your Instagram or whatever for your production. I've just never found that to be something that that's really important for the people that work with me. That I have a presence like that.
So how does that interaction usually happen? It's like meeting somebody in person, maybe you're collaborating at home. How does that process usually go? Yeah,
I mean, we still normally exchange Instagrams and all that kind of stuff, but I'm a text guy, and typically, we'll go out and have coffee, meet up and just kind of see if it's like relationally a good fit, before we even get in, creatively, unless there's like a crazy deadline or something. But if it's like, especially if someone like an artist is coming in there thinking about doing a whole album with me or something, it's like, we'll typically start with like, well, let's talk about doing a song first. Let's do one song. Let's meet, let's do some things, get creative. And then, after that, it can kind of get more formal, where then you try to figure out what the actual situation is, what the business looks like, all that. But to me, it's very much about, do we even like, are we going to be able to mesh in the studio for hours on end? And if you're doing an album for a year or whatever it's going to take to make that. So that's really important when I'm, vibing with somebody. And the thing that starts to play and isn't a factor necessarily all the time, but starts to play as you get more and more into the industry, is I've found that it's really helpful to have someone that vouches for you. Someone that can... and people, there are a lot of times the reason why someone's like really after like a deal of some kind is because it's going to give them that legitimacy to get into rooms or to have someone that, right? So you don't necessarily have to have a deal to do that, but that is one, facet of it. So having somebody that goes, hey, artist, this producer's really great, you should meet with them.
That's so valuable.
That will go over every website that they've seen, every reference that they've seen online, every Instagram number. That will kind of supersede that if somebody they trust said, "Hey, you should talk to this person. They're really great."
Nice.
And so that's where I go back to that. Like, I gotta make friends. Like, the whole thing is like, people have to know. I like people, and I want to stay in touch with them and keep up with them and know what they're doing. And you know how it is. It's like, if I'm on the top of your mind and you're talking with somebody, you're like, "Oh, you should meet Ian. I just was talking with him." So it's all that sort of game, and that's how most of my work kind of comes through.
That's awesome.
Like, hey, this person, I met this person, you should meet them. Hey, I got your information from so and so. Even though like the library that I'm doing a bunch of work with now, I met through an artist I was working with, and she was like, "Hey, cool. Have you ever done any library? Like, you should talk to the library. They're looking for." It's always that.
Totally.
I'll give you a funny story about the Power Ranger thing. This is back when we were living in LA. Cash Calloway, my business partner, he was working at the part-time at the Guitar Center, like in Hollywood on Sunset, and he had a guy come in and was just like looking for keyboard patches or something, and they sold like one of these orchestral libraries or something. This is way back before you could get it all online, and so he wanted it. He was like demoing it for him. So he played some keys, and Cash is an amazing key player. So he plays this. Guy's like, "Hey, you're great. Like, if you ever want to do stuff for TV and film, you should reach out to me."
Sweet.
Didn't reach out to him, right? For like 2 or 3 years. We're like back in Dallas. I was like, I'm going to reach out to this guy. And it ended up being a guy named Noam Keneal, who does like all of the music for a bunch of different TV shows. And that's how I got into that.
You never know.
But that was like just a one-off connection, and somebody kind of saying, "Hey, you're really talented. Like, we should link." And it's like, he didn't send him a website. There was no card. There was no whatever, And so, it's very much relational. It's very much if you vibe with somebody, and then you do have to be talented, because it's like nobody wants to, "Hey, you're really great," and then when you send me the link, it's like, oh, it's not quite there,
Yeah, right.
So it's not like the music, can't.
You need both.
Right? You have to have that. That's almost like just to play the game, just to be in the league. You have to be able to play on a certain level.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of different, ways you can go about it. But
it's amazing, man. Yeah, it's like being human and connecting in person, and
it's going to lead you to the next thing. That somebody you've met is going to lead you to your big break or your next job, or that's always the case for me. So.
Man, that's so encouraging to hear. It's I remember years ago, I did a piece for SiriusXM a couple of years back. Comic-Con begins, and leading the rabbit trail for that is so funny, because it came from me sitting at a coffee shop, and there's 2 people next to me talking, and they just said somebody's name that I knew. I'm like, "Oh, how do you know that person?" And so, I went over and like, "Hi, I was eavesdropping. Like, let me join your conversation." Turned into, "Oh, we're doing a TV show." That turned into, "Oh, I'll make music for that on spec. Like, I'm happy to work with you. I'd love this opportunity." We did this piece. It's called CAA Moms, and it's funny. It's like crime fighting moms who, what was the phrase was saving your butt and getting it in bed by 7:30. It's funny.
Nice.
But did that, and then that same writer that did that show, I didn't hear from him for like 2 or 3 years, and he reaches out and he's like, oh, I did this whole project. I have all these interviews from people who helped start the San Diego Comic-Con, and do you want to do the music for that? And it's just like one thing leads to another, and it's, I don't know, there's something about that that's so encouraging, instead of like the social media game, you know, just plastering stuff everywhere and just kind of hoping that somebody sees it. And it's, I don't know, it's so not connected, you know, it feels like really isolated to do that. But
it's sort of that, some of the wisdom that I remember getting in school, you know, years ago now is when I first got out, like didn't seem as relevant. And then now it feels like it's almost becoming more relevant again. And some of the main like things that we learned about connection in the music business and like even like artists and how to gauge success was the 1,000 true fans model, which totally. That was like the big thing, like, you know, 10 or 15 years ago. And that I think is true. That's like people are coming back around to that thing. Man. And I see a lot of artists having a lot of success with really drilling down, you know, instead of sort of going into that big internet space and trying to, you know, not like you don't have to play that game like we said about artists, but there's a way to do it that's a little more grassroots that I see a lot of people in Nashville and beyond. I mean, I know one of the biggest kind of case studies I've ever seen on it is Ben Rector, who's here in Nashville, and he's like a Christian artist that has a Christian lean, but he also has like pop crossovers and stuff. But you know, his Patreon is what you should go check out on how he runs that. And at least years ago when I looked at this, he was very high on the chart for that of inside of Patreon. He had, you know, thousands of people in this thing. There was one tier of and when I did the math on it, it was like, oh, he can do whatever he wants.
That's amazing.
This funds everything he needs to do. He doesn't need to take a deal. He can do all these things and provide his fans extra access that they can't get. Like, just a very cool model, you know? And so I think there's lots of people that are out there that we would see as super successful that also have, you know, hits on the radio and everything, but they're also engaged with their fans on a grassroots level. And so we should take notice of that too. But I talk about that with artists all the time that are trying to do the math on, you know, how much do I do marketing and how do I, where am I putting my energy? And it's a big question, man. There's a lot that goes into it, but it is nice that there seems to be an undercurrent of that old way coming back, you know?
Yeah, I think we're having like a renaissance. We're like going back into it. People are pulling away from the social media. We're, you know, the whole AI thing, which, you know, it's its own thing, but having like the in-person, genuine, authentic connections, it's so valuable. So we just skirted over a couple of your projects, but you've done so many cool sync projects that I wanted to talk about. You have Power Rangers, you did the theme song for one of their TV shows, Phineas and Ferb. I saw like everything from Zales to NASA, which I think is like amazing. So I would love maybe just you talk about maybe your favorite few of those, and as an example to the producers watching, is like where that opportunity came from, and there's learning experience for one of those. They're
all different. Like that's what, you know, is always so, there's almost no like rhyme or reason to how they come together, or, you know, even the way the productions come together. You know, the Power Rangers thing was very cool because we were such a small part of such a huge machine, you know, that to do what it takes to move a show that's, you know, on a network like that is, it's humbling to see how many people that takes, you know.
Of course, and one of the most important facets of the machine, I'd say, right? It's like
you know,
and that's important.
And that was a really cool opportunity that sort of like built up over time. So we started to get the opportunity to do like what's called like needle drops. So like just specific like, you know, 1 minute cue of this kind of thing, you know, for this certain scene or whatever. And sometimes they would even need vocals sometimes, believe it or not, in that show, or they'd have a character singing or something.
Oh, interesting.
And so we would sometimes be able to connect them with the right singer for that, because we had a large stable of singers that we worked with. So over time, we started doing more and more and more of that. And then it led to where, you know, we were asked to like, do you want to go ahead and actually score, you know, a whole season of this? And so instead of it being like, you know, give me 10 cues of this thing, and then they're going to go edit it in. It was like then we were getting access to the actual picture. We were locking things up to all the synth.
It kind of led into that, you know, started as one ask and it turned into something else. And kind of similar to what you were saying before about like when you work with an artist, it's sort of like testing the waters a little bit.
Exactly.
Same
and it was idea. with Noam, the guy that we had met. And so over time, that relationship had built to a place where I happened to be like vacationing with some friends in Europe, and he lives in France. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up like meeting with him, and we walk up to his studio, and he's like, "Let me show you this project that I'm working on. I think you and Cash should get involved with this." And it was the Power Rangers, you know. And so it was like that's how it was, where he was given the opportunity, and he needed support to do his thing. Right? And so it's always that way, you know.
Sure.
And so that let us, kind of get into the scoring to picture thing. I think it was season 26, 27, I think, and I believe we worked like the 24 and 25 are when we were doing more needle drops, and then 26, 27 was when they were actually like scoring, you know, to picture. And we were, you know, 2 people out of a team of like I think 6 or so that were all scoring.
Oh wow!
So it was like we weren't the only ones scoring on it by any means. And then there were also, you know, editing that was happening after the fact, and cues were getting combined or things were getting, you know, recuts are happening. Like,
did they give you like a brief for like the sound for so many people working on that? Like, it needs to sound.
So that was a constant flux because they had gotten new producers essentially, and then also Hasbro was buying the brand of Power Rangers from Haim Saban at the
middle of it.
Yeah, so when they did, when we actually started on the new season, it was Hasbro was running it.
Okay.
Which was cool because it actually upgraded a lot of the like visual effects and stuff that they were doing, so the episodes looked cooler than they, you know, had been, in my opinion. But it also meant that they had no idea what they wanted. Which was a challenge. There was a lot of, my wife will attest to it, a lot of like us scoring something entirely and then being like, no, not that. Like something else. But then we try that thing that they asked for and they're like, nah, not that.
How many times did it go full circle all the way back to the first idea?
We ended, it's kind of like a spiral where you're picking up things and then you pick up something from the inner side as you go up, and then it's like, so we kept coming back around to different things until we had kind of honed in on it. But they ended up deciding that they wanted like the synth texture and like intensity of like a 24, you know, if you remember that old series with like Kiefer Sutherland. So it's like very like,
sure.
You know, that kind of Transformers, all that kind of stuff. But then they wanted to, in the fight scenes, they wanted to bring in like the synth elements for the Zords and all that, but they still wanted the like hero guitar tapping and all that still. So it was like kind of a blend of all those things. And what ends up happening is you sort of start making like, for that show at least, like a Bible of like, for certain characters even. So I remember one of the things that I got tasked with was there are 2 like comic relief characters. And so every time that they come on, there's an original melody from the very first, and that was the other thing is we were being told by Noam to reference the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from the 90s, the first season. So we were listening to that too, which I watched as a kid, which was super fun, nostalgic.
Awesome.
But they wanted something that sounded very similar to that comedy vibe, but in a new way. And so that was like something where we worked on the motif of the melody, the sound of it, and then every single time that you see them enter, that motif enters in some way, even if it's a different instrument or whatever. So some of that was just like writing this is what happens when the, you know, Lord Draven comes in,
and it's like there is
there's a sting, there's a sound that's like supposed to trigger this is this guy. And so in a kid's show, that's a lot more. It's not happening in a Netflix show like that. So, but this is kind of like almost like a blend of animation, the way you would score animation, even though it's live action. So there's a lot of that, and like figuring out what the producers liked, and then it's like sending it off, and a bunch of dudes in a room that you never see that have suits on come back with notes that don't make any sense, and you're trying to parse through it.
Usually non-musical notes, or like
you know, we need it to feel a little more blue right here, like it's just things like where you're like, okay, and you have to interpret it.
That's your translation. You have a lot of practice with that from being a producer working with
with artists. It's the same thing. So a lot of that was a fun project because of how involved it was. You know, and there was tight deadlines, and then we could also then you could see the episode would come out and you could see it. So it was happening in real time where we were working on like 2 or 3 episodes ahead of what we were seeing.
Yeah.
So we were not that far ahead.
How fast is the speed of that one for TV? It's pretty quick, huh?
It's pretty quick. And that one is also weird because I forget how they do it, because it's like the first season and the second season are actually one, like when they change the name, they keep it for at least 2 seasons. And I believe there was like 22 episodes in each side. So it ends up being 44 episodes.
Whoa.
And then they end up being like 22 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot that goes into it, but again, it's sort of, you start to find those ways of things that work. And then there's special episodes, which are really cool. So one of the ones that I thought was so fun was they had one where they brought back the original Green Ranger, rest in peace,
cool.
and some of the originals into, that universe, and had a whole like 2-part, final climactic thing. And that they let us do, they had us reference the Power Rangers film, the actual Lionsgate, I think it was, or whatever film, and do more of like that Brian Tyler, Hans Zimmer type of thing.
Yeah,
and that was really
fun.
cool, because that was just different, and you could tell their budget and stuff was higher on that episode than others, and like, so that was a really cool one that I still will, every once in a while, Cash will send me like a clip of like, remember this? I'm like, yeah, that was such a good time. Man. So that's definitely one of the ones that sticks out, of course, and then, it's always fun to see your stuff go out in anything. To me,
yeah, what a thrill.
The Phineas and Ferb thing was really cool, where I had met somebody in LA, Danny Jacobs, and he does all the Phineas and Ferb stuff. It was like, and we were writing for a new show that, gosh, I can't even remember what the name of it was. I don't even know that it actually happened, but it was like we were making weird alien noises. We were doing really fun. He was just a fun guy, and ended up months later. I actually was back in Dallas, and he was like, "Hey, I've got this song." We actually had. I'm forgetting the name. The guy who's from Whose Line. That's really funny.
Oh, Carrie.
Now the African American dude. Wayne's.
Wayne.
Whatever.
His last name? Yeah.
I'm totally butchering it, but they had him like set to sing a song for them for Phineas and Ferb, and it like fell through for whatever reason.
Huh.
And so they were like, "Do you want to take a stab at like redoing the demo so that we can like try to find another vocalist?"
You went above and beyond on that, man.
Something. Yeah.
Wayne Brady.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. Like I'll do it. So I didn't write any of that. They had the track. They asked me to put some guitar, like help do some of the production, like finish, like giving them more stems and stuff. And then they had me do the vocal, top line that they had written, perform that out, and do some of the vocal like funnies and things like that.
Yeah.
So I did that as a demo. Sent it to them, was excited to, hear who they were going to get to do it and all that kind of stuff. And I get a call that's like, hey, so the guys love your version. We're just going to like run with that in the show if you're cool with it.
That's so
like,
good.
Well, do you want me to like recut it? It was kind of a demo. They're like, no, it's great.
Perfect.
It's like, we
That's
love it.
so funny, man.
And so, so they ended up, if you look at it as like under Ian Osborne on the Phineas and Ferb like album, it comes up like I'm the artist or something. But
so good.
Yeah, it was called Feeling Super was the song, and it was during their like Marvel meetup. So like Spider-Man and Thor and all of them come in, and yeah, it was really fun. So it was like super random. Didn't even know that it was gonna be a thing that actually went in the show.
So fun.
It can all be like that. It can even be things that are like you said, the NASA thing. That was through like a Music Bed, which is one of our like licensing partners. They do a bunch of micro licensing. They had sent out briefs for different stuff that we had put in for that, and then they ended up getting one for us.
What was the piece for that? What was the video?
So as far as I remember, because that was actually quite a while back. That was like an internal marketing thing that they had sent out inside of NASA to like hype a certain program that they had done. And the clip that I remember seeing was like very much like tech. They were showing different technology, and it was just like, we're the future. Like that was sort of the vibe. Sure. But I believe it was internal and maybe ad based when they did if it was like outside. So
cool. Yeah. That's a whole other opportunity I think producers don't even think about. It's like there's a lot of internal communications for companies.
For big companies like that.
And get people like hyped on the brand and
totally. Different internal marketing things. I'm pretty sure that was the majority of what that one was.
Yeah,
but
that's amazing, man. That's so cool. And how fun with the Power Rangers Phineas
Ferb. That was very fun, of course, and always loved doing the animation stuff, and it's kind of a fun it's just different. It's a different part of your brain that you're sort of using when you're doing animation, as scoring than if you're doing like an artist project or something. So,
yeah.
Very fun.
So we talked a lot about like business and brand projects and like music for something else that you wrote. Love to understand more, I guess, your origin story, like your background, and like what is your creativity, like what is your music that you like to make?
Yeah.
Because I know there's a little bit of a difference between this is to spec and like using your, I kind of compare it skills versus passion, or like skills versus talent. If you believe in talent, it's like I'm using all these skills that I developed to make something for this specific thing. I guess my question is like, do you make your own music in the same way, or does that come from a different place? Does it just come from inspiration?
So I started off as an artist, first off. So I was never a producer. I started playing guitar when I was like 10. My dad played guitar, and so he started teaching me, and I had like a little like mini acoustic guitar with nylon strings that didn't hurt my fingers too bad. Got into that, and then I started playing in church, And
cool.
So, and then started singing in church. And then started like leading worship at church, and like starting to do more like band leading and like learning how everything works together a little bit, sort of just like knowing about it. And at the time I started taking before I actually start doing that stuff in church, I start taking from a guy named Tom Hanby, guitar teacher from University of North Texas. And little did I know, this guy's just like, I kind of knew he was a monster, but he's just a monster teacher too. And the things that he was able to teach me at a young age were so like foundational to music that I felt like I knew a lot, by the time I was even getting into some of these things of just understanding it. And so I started to just love the live performance of it, and, love writing. I started writing some of my own stuff and playing like in bands in high school.
Nice.
A friend of mine's band was like really popular in Dallas. They were like the kid phenom band. They were called Minority, and they were like Blink 182 kind of like reimagining almost. But we were all little tiny guys back then. And that I got so much energy from watching them do their whole thing. And so I started playing in bands, and so I was coming at it from that. And then I started to I got the program Reaper, which is like a free DAW. Yeah, that's I think it's originally on PC.
Yeah, it's like the only one that won't crash.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
Amazing, man.
And I got into that because Cash, my buddy Cash, who was my producer at the time, he had something called I think it's called a Miko, and it's like a computer built into a keyboard. I think Timbaland like made it famous. This is like before we had gotten to where we are now.
Yeah.
So this was like cutting edge, and he had put Reaper on there, and he let me borrow it. For a while while he went traveling. And so I remember just like probably failed every class that semester, like just like fell into that in LA, and just started like doing like a ton of like making stuff and recording for the first time. And that's when I started to really get into like writing my own music and started to write. This is like pre-Justin Bieber, this is like Cobra Starship, and like I'm listening to that kind of stuff. So I ended up putting together a project with a buddy of mine who's a DJ. And so it was like me and a DJ, and I was playing guitar, and then I was like white boy flowing. So I'm like doing covers of like Lollipop by Lil Wayne and stuff. Very of the time it was in
That's
at the
awesome,
time.
man.
So but I'm doing that and having a great time, and then go out to LA, and I'm doing that. I'm still kind of focused on the artist thing, and I get the opportunity from the studio that I'm working at with Cash to pitch a bunch of music for TV and film. And they're just like, hey, we're looking for it's called the NBC Mountain Dew Tour, which is like the X Games-esque version that they do on that network. And they have a winter one and a summer one or whatever. They're looking for, at the time, dubstep was all the rage. So it was like Skrillex was all everything.
Yep.
Trap was not yet. It's like, so they were looking for that kind of stuff, which I, of course, like everyone, was like learning how to womp womp in the Ableton and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'll throw a bunch of dubstep stuff. And sure enough, they were like, hey, we love it. Like, we love all the stuff you gave us. They're going to use it. In fact, they picked this one to be the theme song. And so
this is stuff that you had just been working on for yourself.
I just like loving making dubstep, and then they asked for it, and so I made some stuff with that sort of in mind. But still like it was all just like me making dubstep stuff that I thought was cool.
Yeah, nice.
And then throwing it, because I didn't know what I'd never done any kind of sync work or anything. So I'm just like making like, is it this? I don't know. And when that kind of happened and worked, I was like, I really like this production thing. Like I think I think I'm gonna let go of the artist thing and like do the production thing. And so that's where it sort of started to switch to where then I started working with Cash more closely as a co-producer and like working with other artists and finding. So all that to say, from that period, from when I kind of stopped doing my artistry until very recently, I sort of almost took a break from like, unless I was literally like on like just for fun doing something, and I had lots of sessions that never saw the light of day that I did that on, but there was so much like, it felt like I was in school of like learning how to do the job and like learning how to do the work of like, how do you make a track from scratch in 30 minutes? Like, how does that work? Because I've seen people do it and I can't do it, you know? And I'm like, so there's a lot of like, just felt like grinding in the, like in the gym. Felt like, you know, I wasn't playing a lot of games yet. Like I wasn't getting in the game. I was still like on the bench and like working out a ton. And so that during that period of time, I didn't do a ton of my own stuff, right? I got involved with a lot of projects that I poured myself fully into with other artists, but not for myself, right? Recently though, and just because of kind of how things have played out, I've started to do that again, which has been really fun. You know, I linked up with a company in town that does a lot of my sync catalog, and they kind of helped me usher in the idea of Light League, which is my project right now, which is kind of like my producer moniker that I do for sync. And what it allows me to do is hold some of the stuff that I do for sync in more of an artist lens, where there's plenty of stuff that I have, even with that same company, that's very straight ahead. It's gonna work for sync, but the stuff that I do with Light League is a little bit more my artistry, a little bit more what
has your signature on.
Yeah, it's a little bit more my thing, whether or not that's the right thing or whatever, right?
Sure.
And then this year I've started to even build out a couple other projects. So I'll probably end up having like 2 or 3 different projects that are more my quote unquote my own artistry.
Different brands for different sounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fun.
You know, I came from the hard rock world actually. Like that's where I grew up listening to post punk and screamo bands and stuff. Rage Against the Machine and all this, right? Of course, as we did. But so I'm doing like a new school project of that. That's a really fun thing that I've been doing recently. And then I've also been doing this like
good time for it.
Yeah. That's been birthed out of like therapy for me. Like I've needed somewhere to put that. So that's kind of came out of necessity because I was, it's been a good release valve for me.
Cool. I want to come back to
so
that.
That's awesome. I'll send you some of that stuff. You can hear me absolutely just losing my on the records. But then I'm also doing like this, like, I don't know, we're listening to a lot of like French indie house music and stuff. And then I'm making like it's all sort of house dance music, but I have a lot of like other alternate like languages than English. I've got like some Dutch stuff and some different things that are
what's the inspiration for that? Like where'd that come from?
From my buddy at the sync catalog that does a lot of my stuff.
Gotcha.
So they were just like, hey, I'm seeing a lot of this stuff out there, and like we don't have any of this, and like I know you do the dance kind of thing, and like would you ever want to look at and making this really weird off the wall stuff?
Like yes.
And I was like, say less. I love doing like I also sort of, because of the dubstep thing, kind of come from the EDM thing too. So it was like, I'd love to do something that's more traditionally kind of house based. And that's been really fun because there's very little rules in that space for how avant-garde the sound could be.
Oh, cool.
And how weird and wacky it can be. And then the fact that I don't speak the language makes the vocal feel more like an instrument to me. And so I treat it like that, I think, in the productions. So to me, it just feels, it doesn't feel like something I would make. Like when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, it's very different. So I like that because it's sort of scratching another part of my brain.
Interesting. Yeah. In the different kinds of music that you make, do you feel like attached to one specific kind, or like are they extensions of you? Or are they different images of you? Or are they totally separate? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it is interesting. I never really thought about like how they all work in the universe. I feel like there's ways, like if I'm gonna sing or if I'm gonna be the vocalist,
that's you.
In ways that I do things, and they typically tend to be the harder, a little edgier rock thing with a little bit of hip hop blend in there, because I also grew up listening to Eminem and all that. So it's like that is what I do if I'm the vocalist. If I'm like producing it as an artist and not as a producer, so to speak, or like for sync or something.
Sure.
Then I definitely lean dancier. Anything that grew, like it has to do that for me. It's where I come from, you know? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's they're all sort of aspects, I think, of what I like to do, but it also feels like to me almost like if a tree is growing and eventually it gets to the point where it actually bears fruit, it's like these are different trees almost that like not every part of my production or every style I do is at the point where it's like fruit bearing and like sounds like it's like it's such a real thing that you can hold in your hands and like have a bite out of. I feel like some of the production I do, I can make you think that. Like I can kind of fool you. I can give you the cheeseburger. Like it's pretty close. Like
right.
It's good or whatever. But then there's some stuff where it's like, bro, this feels more like this is you giving me your like real, you know what I mean? And so that feels like some of those places. The sort of the Light League thing, which is sort of cinematic in nature and dark, edgy typically. That's like that's what I love making, like in a lot of ways, because it came from the Power Rangers and all that work together, you know, and it has some elements of rock and stuff. But then some of these other things are just like, they're just as sort of palatable to me, but they're totally different, you know.
Nice.
They do feel like a different person sort of when I get into the booth or I get into the space.
Kind of need each of those expressions to come out too. Like you're talking about the Rage Against the Machine-esque project and that coming from just like this, almost like catharsis, like this need to get stuff out.
Yeah.
And what is your creative philosophy for making music in general? And this is a big question, but like when and let's take the like prompts off the table and like, oh, I need to make this for a specific thing. Is there a name for the Rage Against the Machine project yet?
Not yet. Not that I can say yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's coming. I'm hoping to start releasing at the end of the year.
That's cool, man. So, you know, the purpose for that, it feels like, it's therapy. It's like I have this emotion in me that like needs to come out. There's something weighing on me from society, or like the world, like the state of the world that it's in. And so that type of music is expressed in that way of almost like an outlet. But then there's other parts that you talked about, in your garden, I'd say, you know, sprouting different ideas where this is less of an outlet and this is more of like just an expression. There's like one piece of me that I want out. With the therapeutic kind of side of things, like where does that, why is that important? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I guess for me those are totally different lanes. In fact, like in the way that I would kind of think about it is there's consuming music and there's making it. And they are very, very different. And often the music that's most consumed is being created by people who are doing what we're talking about with like the outpouring of themselves, right? And typically that resonates with a lot of people because we're all very similar. And so it will find its place. And so like, for example, the Rage Against the Machine, I think he was fully expressing things in a way that he couldn't otherwise almost. It's like he'd talk your ear off, I'm sure, about all the things that he would politically say in the songs, but he can express it in a certain way with the song. But why? Why would he do that? I don't know this. My guess would be so that when the waves in the air start to do that Rage Against the Machine, that feeling that he has is imparted to you.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And that's different. Like that's a whole different mechanism than like what he's doing is when he's making it, right? So he's pouring it out and he's doing this thing, but then what has to happen in production and the mixing and everything is so that when the speaker, that you feel what he felt when he did it.
Yes.
And that's like, that part is in all of it. Whether you're pouring yourself out in a way that is like more honest than honest, like a Rage Against the Machine thing, or whether you're doing it to where, Love Island needs to feel like it's a super swaggy moment and everyone's hot right now.
Still a translation.
It's still, when the speaker does this, do you feel what I want you to feel? Do you feel the emotion of what I was intending you to feel?
Yeah.
And I'm not like, it's not like everyone has the same experience when they listen to Rage Against the Machine or whatever, but there's a certain touchable quality of like when you hear that record, right?
Yeah,
the same thing when you hear even like something on TV or you hear a good advertising song or whatever. It does something.
It's the most amazing thing about music.
You know? And so that's, I think, in my philosophy, it's like, at the end of the day, the real goal is the sort of transmutation, the translation between me and the listener.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just for me. And that's fine. That is, and in fact, that's great. Mm-hmm. But what starts to happen when you do that, and then you come out of that space, this has happened to me a ton, and I'm like, want to go share it with somebody, and I press play, and it doesn't do it.
Oh,
it doesn't translate that.
When you've made it for yourself, you're saying.
Yeah, if I haven't thought about, is this
how is this going to be?
Is this going to be received? Am I getting it out there? You know, and so if it sort of just stays in that, like, it might never get to that place where, and you'll see a lot of artists do this, and this is how they mask it, I think. But it's like, oh, this isn't mixed yet. This isn't totally finished. That means it doesn't do what you want it to do yet.
That part
and you know it. You
matter.
know that it doesn't do what you want it to do. Because if it did, you wouldn't say anything. Because it would be saying what you want it to say.
That's so good, man. Yeah.
And that's frustrating as a producer. And that's like that period of time that I was talking about where I'm in the gym. That was a lot of times when I would show up to meetings and I'd press play and be like, that doesn't do what I want it to do. It sounded great at the house. It feels good in my car or whatever. But when I'm sitting with other people and I press play, it doesn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating. And so it's like, go back to the drawing board and go and figure out, what is it, you know? Is it the writing? Is it the mixing? Is it the master? Like, what are we, and there's so many pieces to that, right? But that's my goal. Is just like, everybody likes different music, but if I put it on and people are like, damn, that sounds phenomenal.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. 100%. Because even if it doesn't resonate with them emotionally, then they're like, yo, I can tell that's super powerful. I don't like rock music or whatever, but dang, you know, that's great. But then with the person who they are pre-prone to like that message, or they listen to rap or whatever, and they hear it, they're gonna go, what? Can I have this?
Yeah.
That's the biggest like compliment I can get, is like when someone's like, can I have a copy? Like, can I get this?
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I'm after. I don't know. That's what my sort of creative philosophy is.
Man,
like, I want to make people move. When you press play, I don't want to have to explain myself, you know, before I play it.
So good.
Anyway.
I have to go one more layer deeper into that. It's so good. You know, I haven't heard that interpretation of this before. It's really, really good. I've heard the opposite, where it's like, if you make something that resonates with yourself, it will resonate with other people. And like, sometimes that's true, but also it's everybody's different. You have to like guide people through a production. You can't just expect people to understand what you did while you're making it. If you were to condense all of this into like a word of wisdom for somebody, of like, here's what you need to be aware of as you're making something, you know, what would it be? Like, make something as if there's somebody else in the room? Would it be, you know, create something with like leading people through it? You know, what is like the one piece that you'd impart to maybe like a younger version of yourself or to somebody watching?
That's a good question. I think like honesty is the word that comes to mind. And I think it can take a lot of forms, but like being honest with yourself. Where are you actually at? You know, how does this really sound? You know, when I compare it against a record that I love, how close am I actually? How good is the mix? How good is the sound that we're hearing? Honestly, because like the reason why sometimes that other line of thinking, which is sage wisdom, by the way, making something that you resonate with, is going to, it protects you against trying to create art for someone else.
Ooh, which that's good.
And that's what that line of wisdom I think is so good. But what it could do is it could make it to where you're not willing to hear what you need to hear, which is, this isn't there yet, right? And this isn't quite, it isn't connecting. Like,
it's isolative, right? It's like, it's almost like tunnel vision, or, you know.
Yeah, you don't want to get isolated, or like get in an echo chamber where, you know, everybody around you and everything is just great, because that may not be accurate, you know? And so I often, honesty, getting a good honest, so maybe that you have somebody that you trust that you're bringing stuff to, you know, does this pass the like quality test, you know, of just like the sound of this? Is this industry standard in that way? And then you could talk about the subjectivity of all the, you know, chord structures and all that till the cows come home. But like that level can be really helpful, because something that can stop your music from like making a connection to somebody is literally the way it sounds. It may not be the writing or the it may be the way that the master just it's not right. And so because we all consume so much music, we don't even realize we're listening to it all the time and hearing it all the time. Anytime that something's not quite there, you do notice that, as even as a layman listener.
And you have to notice it while you're making it.
And you got to notice it while you're making it. And if you can't, or you need that honest and outside opinion, then that's very valuable. And then just being honest about like, what do you actually want? Because what often is happening is you want whatever the loudest voice in your head is saying. And typically that loudest voice is like somebody else. It's not typically you. It's your mom. It's your dad. It's that college professor. It's that like, it's the societal pressure of you wanting to be famous or whatever it is. Be honest with yourself about what rules you. Because the other thing too is, and that's fine. You want to be famous and that's what rules you. Own that.
Right.
Because you can do a lot more with that than you know. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're like, I just love making music. I actually dislike all of the things that come with it. Know that about yourself.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
don't go try to play the game online of all the things that, because you're not built that way. You want to do this. There's a way to do that. But the honesty with yourself is like, what am I after? What do I want? Do I want to play music and like get together with my friends and make stuff that I like and it sound really great and like do this on the weekends, or like I want to pay my bills with this. I want to do this on an independent level. I want to do this on a label level. I want to do this. I want to win a Grammy. Like, get really honest, and not what like somebody says you should want to do.
What you want.
What you actually want to do. I think all of that will help you not make too many of the like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back mistakes where you're sort of realize like, that actually wasn't really what I wanted to do, and all that. So yeah, honesty. I think just being honest with yourself, honest with your music. Honest in your expression of it. Like if you're not like a swaggy like dude that like this, then maybe you don't need to be making that. Like you need to be honest with what you can do. And there are some people that like you look at them and you're like, that's not that guy, and he gets in the booth and you're like, holy shit, that is that guy. Whoever you actually are, bring that to the table, and that's what's going to be that's going to bring you back to that healthy part of the first side of wisdom, which is that if you're doing all that and you're being honest and you're resonating like that, the world won't have a choice but to sort of like get on board with you on some level, which is kind of what I think that like Rick Rubin sort of style of thing is, which I think is great. So that's what I would say, honesty.
Amazing, man. Yeah. So good. Man, I don't know how to follow up after that. Like that was incredible. I feel like that's a great way to end everything. Like, thank you so much for all of this. It's such a great lens for people, and thanks for touching all the different points, the business side of things and collaboration, and then the creative philosophy is so good, man. I'm going to take that with me as well. So
great. Well, thanks for having me, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, thanks so much,
dude. Thanks.
Yeah.